You call it peace. You call it comfort. You tell yourself that staying home is just your way of recharging, that you're different, that you prefer quiet to chaos. But deep down, you know it's more than that. It's control. It's protection. It's a quiet rebellion against a world that never stopped taking from you. You say you love staying at home, but the truth? Home is the only place where you still decide who gets in, what happens, and how much of yourself the world gets to see. And that's not laziness. That's not weakness. That's psychology, dark, intricate, and built on one primal instinct: to stay unseen, but in control. This is what they're really hiding. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You didn't start this way. Once, you were out there, showing up, smiling, performing the role everyone expected. You played the game. You followed the script. You thought if you just did it right, you'd finally feel seen. But the world is noisy, and people are unpredictable. Somewhere along the way, you learned that peace doesn't live out there. It lives in silence, in the absence of performance, in the space where no one can demand anything from you. So you retreated, bit by bit, one declined invite at a time, until your world became small, familiar, safe, controlled. What people don't understand is that staying home isn't about hating others. It's about not wanting to lose pieces of yourself every time you step outside. You realize something most people never do. Peace can't coexist with constant exposure. And once you've tasted real solitude, not loneliness, but true autonomy, you start to crave it like a drug. Psychologists call it selective disengagement, but let's call it what it really is. Strategic withdrawal. You're not running, you're repositioning, and that's power. Here's where it gets darker, because the longer you stay inside, the more you start building your world around yourself. Every object becomes part of your system. Every routine becomes your armor. Your space becomes a mirror that reflects only what you want to see. You begin to curate silence. You choose what sounds enter your day. You decide which messages to answer, which calls to ignore. And slowly, you stop reacting. Control becomes comfort. Predictability becomes protection. And the outside world, it starts to feel unnecessary. You tell yourself you don't need anyone, but really, what you mean is you don't trust anyone enough to let them disturb the order you've built. You've learned the hard way that chaos often comes disguised as connection. Research shows that people who create highly controlled environments experience lower cortisol levels, less stress, less anxiety. They're not avoiding life, they're designing it on their terms. And that terrifies people who've never tried. Because once you realize you can build peace instead of chasing it, you stop needing the world's approval. But not everyone who stays home is the same. There are patterns, there are types, and you'll recognize yourself in one of them. The healer. You stay home because the world broke something in you. Maybe it was betrayal, maybe humiliation, maybe just exhaustion from pretending. Home became the recovery ward for your mind. Every closed door was a boundary. Every quiet night a form of therapy. You call it rest, but it's really repair. The controller. You stay home because it's the one place that obeys you. Out there, people have opinions, moods, demands. But inside, everything is predictable. Everything bends to your rhythm. You don't fear the world. You just refuse to let it dictate your state of mind. The ghost. You stay home because invisibility is your form of power. You've realized that when no one can reach you, they can't hurt you, measure you, or use you. You don't post, you don't announce, you watch, and that gives you an edge most people will never understand. The creator. You stay home because solitude is your oxygen. You don't avoid people, you transcend them. Ideas, art, visions, they grow best in your silence. You aren't escaping the world. You're building one that's entirely your own. Each of these types hides the same truth. Staying home isn't just preference. It's a psychological adaptation to a world that constantly drains, manipulates, and misunderstands you. And you've adapted perfectly. But every adaptation has a shadow. The same walls that protect you can quietly become your cage, because comfort has a price. And peace, when left unchecked, decays into stagnation. You start convincing yourself that the world outside isn't worth the energy. You rationalize your distance as self-care. But what you're really doing is practicing invisibility. The longer you stay in, the more foreign movement feels. Your brain stops craving novelty. Your dopamine learns to live on predictability. And soon, you don't just prefer home, you need it. It's not solitude anymore. It's sedation. You stop taking small risks, the kind that remind you you're alive. You stop reaching out because silence feels safer than rejection. And before you notice, peace turns into paralysis. This is the dark edge of home-loving psychology, where protection quietly becomes imprisonment, where safety becomes the reason you stop evolving. Psychologists warn about this. They call it maladaptive isolation. When your comfort zone becomes so comfortable, you forget there's a world outside it, and slowly, imperceptibly, you start dying while you're still breathing. But there's another layer, one most people will never admit. Many who love staying home aren't just avoiding chaos. They're feeding on control. When you withdraw from the world, you stop being influenced by it. You stop playing the social game, and in a strange, subversive way, that makes you powerful. You observe others online from a distance while staying emotionally detached. You can see patterns in people's behavior because you're no longer in them. You become the quiet analyst, the observer behind the curtain, the one who knows what others are too distracted to notice. You've turned solitude into strategy. While everyone else is performing, chasing validation, burning out for applause, you're watching, learning, calculating. You see who's fake, who's desperate, who's playing what role. And you realize something most never will. Most social interaction is just theater. Everyone exhausted, everyone pretending, everyone trapped in a performance they can't escape. But you escaped. You opted out, and from that position, you hold a power they'll never understand. The power to be unaffected, unmoved, unbothered by the chaos that controls everyone else. That's not weakness, that's mastery. But the mind is a manipulator. It convinces you that isolation is growth, even when it's decay. It tells you you're evolving, when really, you're just protecting an old wound. And if you're not careful, you start mistaking control for healing, because healing opens you up again. Control locks you in, and that's the paradox. You build walls to feel safe, but those same walls start whispering lies. You're better alone. No one understands you. The world out there doesn't deserve you. But the truth? You're not hiding from the world. You're hiding from the parts of yourself that only the world can trigger, challenge, or grow. Because real growth happens at the edge of comfort, and you've been so deep inside comfort that you forgot where the edge is. The moment you confuse safety with stagnation, you've lost. Not to the world, to yourself. So what's the way out? Not by forcing yourself into the noise again. That would be punishment, not progress. The real path is balance. Let your home be your fortress, not your prison. Use solitude to sharpen your awareness, not erase your presence. Go out sometimes, not to perform, but to witness. Step into the world with the same control you built indoors. You don't have to give the world your peace, just your presence. Because the most dangerous thing about isolation isn't loneliness. It's how quietly it convinces you that you no longer need to live. But here's the forbidden truth they won't tell you. The strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who mastered silence, who learned to be still without being stagnant, who can retreat without disappearing. You can love your solitude and still stay dangerous. You can protect your peace and still stay sharp. You can be selective without being invisible. That's the real power. Not withdrawal, not performance, but conscious presence, choosing when to engage, choosing when to retreat, and never letting anyone, not even yourself, confuse strategy with fear. So yes, love your solitude, protect it, guard it, build your world inside those walls. But don't disappear inside it, because there's a difference between being unseen and being forgotten, between peace and numbness, between control and fear. And the moment you can tell the difference, you stop hiding even when you're still at home. You're not broken, you're not weak, you're not missing out. You've figured out what most people are still desperately chasing. Peace, clarity, control. Not over others, but over yourself, over your energy, over your time, over your mind. And if people judge you for it, let them. They're still stuck performing for an audience that will forget them the second they stop. Drop a comment. Tell me which archetype you are. Subscribe if you're ready to see the world through a darker, clearer lens. And join the community where we talk about the psychology others are too afraid to admit. Until next time, stay sharp, stay selective, stay home if that's where your power lives. You love staying at home, and that's fine. Just don't let the walls convince you that they're your only world.